There is an account. I don't like to use the word story because even though they're Bible stories, when we get the word story in our heads, we sometimes think, well, this is a parable or a tale or, a myth with a moral meaning. But it's an account in 3 of the Gospels. I'm not sure why the Holy Spirit didn't inspire the 4th writer to put it in his, maybe because 3 was enough. For whatever reason, it's not in the Gospel of John. But it's in Matthew 9, I believe, Mark 5, and I can't remember exactly where Luke. And it's the account of the woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years who pushed in to see Jesus. And we read that and we think, oh, isn't that good? Isn't that a good example for us to follow, to push in, to not let anything get in the way and go to Jesus and find what we need? And sure, it's that. But this is one of the biggest, most amazing examples of grace pre-cross that's in the Gospels. And I think because of our cultural misunderstandings and distance from the situation, we miss it. And it's important. I think that's why it's in 3 of the 4 Gospels, because it's critical. It's huge. Because I don't know about you, but there are many times that even now, I sometimes feel like, I don't really have any right to be going to God. How could God love me? Now, luckily, those are few and far between these days, and it used to be pretty much every moment. But now it doesn't last long and it doesn't come often, but I still have those moments. I still have those same areas of weakness that can come under attack. And what we sometimes fail to remember is that it was actually against the law for her to do what she did. She was breaking the law to get to Jesus. See, we can read that and think, oh, that must have sucked. That must have been uncomfortable. That must have been horrible for a woman to be menstruating for 12 years. Ugh. And yeah, that would be bad enough. But if she was married, she wasn't allowed to share a bed with her husband for over a decade. If she wasn't married, she couldn't get married because she wasn't clean. There's a very good possibility that she had to live outside the walls of the city, which reduced the amount of protection she had. But even if that wasn't the case, she could not be a part of the community, not a real part, because she wasn't welcome in the synagogue. She could not go into the place of worship. She couldn't touch anyone. It was her responsibility not to get her uncleanness on anybody else. See, I think there's a reason why we're told she pushed through the crowd. And when Jesus said, "Who touched me?" the disciples were like, "Are you kidding me? Everybody's touching you. We can't help but touch you. We're all crowded in together." Because what it did was it made it very clear there was no way she got to Jesus without pushing her way through a mass. That was not socially acceptable. That was not legal. See, the law said there was no way for her to be a part. The law said there was no way she could come to the man of God, to God himself. She couldn't go into the synagogue. She couldn't go through the crowd. She couldn't touch anybody. But she reached out and touched Jesus. And I believe that's why he said, "Who touched me?" Because I think he knew. I don't think he was confused. I don't think he was surprised. I think he knew exactly who in that crowd, when he turned around, had access by faith who he was, looking for grace and mercy. But he gave her an opportunity to say, "I did, because I need you. Even though I'm not supposed to be able to do what I did." And he didn't condemn her. They made a point of telling us what was wrong. She didn't just say, "I was sick," and he said, "Well, now you're healed." They made a point of letting us know what was wrong, because for whoever knows how long, as far as in a portion of her life, it may have been half her life. It may have been less. I don't know. But for 12 years, she couldn't touch and be touched. She couldn't have normal community or family. She couldn't go into worship. She couldn't be a part of, and she wasn't allowed to do any of what she just did. It's one thing for the lepers to cry out and Jesus to go to them. See, they weren't supposed to be touched either, and Jesus went to them and touched them. But we don't have any examples of lepers pushing through and touching Jesus. But according to the law, she was as unclean as the leper. And Jesus welcomed her, spoke of her faith, accepted her. Because the point was always, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you've been. If you're broken and you see a need for Jesus, if the rules and the law and everything about us who knows what the difference between right and wrong is says you have no right, you can't go to God, Jesus says, push on through and come to me, and I will accept you. And then he finished his journey and went to the cross. And he died in our place so that all of us could do what we were not able to do before. Because we are all on our own unclean. We could not go into the Holy of Holies. We could not be legally right. We could not stand before God and say, "I'm okay." We could not be a part of. We were not acceptable. And he shed his blood. His blood flowed so that we could push through anything and everything in between us and him and latch onto that grace and say, "I don't care who's between me and you. They don't matter. I don't care if I'm not supposed to be here. That doesn't matter. I don't care if the law says I have screwed up too many times in too many ways and I'm not worthy to walk into the house of God. Jesus, you are my answer, and I know you will accept me." Because he does. The unclean, that's you and me. The broken, the bleeding, the bruised, the messed up who have messed up. He loves us as we are, not as we should be. But he loves us enough not to leave us as we are, but to make us clean, to make us new, to give us freedom, to give us the right to come into the Holy of Holies and be in his presence and to touch God and be touched by God, to be a part of his family. And he did that by giving his very life on that cross. That's love. So if you feel like you're unclean, well, maybe you messed up. But unclean never stopped Jesus. If he only came for the clean, he wouldn't have stayed very long. You can come. And he will accept you. You are welcome. He loves you. He will make you clean. He will make you whole. So if you believe that, if even a small part of you believes that, and you can trust that Jesus will not turn you away, that you can come, no matter what's happened today or this week or this month or this year or for a lifetime, you can come.